It's time for the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Podcast.
We've got lots and lots of things to talk about and to do today.
Covering the territories from the 1940s to the 1990s.
It's the best thing going today.
Interviewing wrestlers, referees, authors, and other media personalities that have made the sport of professional wrestling great.
The cream, yeah. The cream of the crop.
And now, here's your host, Tony Richards.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Videocast. Today, I'm joined with special guest Evans Ginzburg, who has written the book Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. I really enjoyed this book, perhaps because Evan and I share the same generation timeline of watching pro wrestling, and he went to his first match, I think, in 74, and that's when I went to my first match, was in 1974. So
exactly. June 24, 74, Madison Square Garden.
Right on. And we got a lot. I really enjoyed reading the book because I was reading a fellow generation. So you and it's not just about wrestling either. And some of you know that I've got a different kind of background as well in music and entertainment and things of that nature. And so I'm excited to talk about some of the things in the book. So I like the format of the book too. The way you sort of wrote it in story form. You just go from one story to another story. It's like story number 3, story number 4. So I enjoyed that.
Over 100 stories in there, and I started writing it during COVID. I live in Queens, New York, and we were devastated during COVID. We had 800 people a day dying. And I had 5 friends die, and basically to keep my sanity after everything was shut down, and I felt like I had a ankle bracelet under house arrest. I woke up every morning, couldn't go to the gym, it was shut down, couldn't go to the movies, it was shut down. I sat and wrote, and I had all these stories floating around for years, like ghosts that needed to be put to rest, friends I lost, family, but a lot of funny things too. As an agent in pro wrestling, being on the road with these legends, and it's just these ideas, these scattered ideas, and I got the idea for the format from a book called The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, which is a beautiful book about growing up in Chicago in the 1960s.
Wow.
And the book is all these short stories from 1 page to 4 or 5 pages. And it's her neighbors, her family, her friends. It's from a teenager's perspective, and the stories don't necessarily go together, but they do because it's all her life.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful book, and it just gave me the idea, and that's basically my format. In chronological order, though, I basically cover my life from childhood until now, but
it was very much like going through in the old days. Now, the kids today don't do this as much, but in our day, we were growing up, we kept photo albums, right? And you would sit and thumb through a photo album. And this book just gave me a feeling like that, like I was thumbing through a photo album of stories of your life. And that was just really cool. I really enjoyed the way you laid that out.
Thank you. And there were some great photos in there. Dr. Mike Lano and Dave Drayson Berzinski. Dave managed the original Sheik late in his career, and just some tremendous. Ivan Koloff's in there. He just got put in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's going in this week, and it's just putting a lot of ghosts to rest.
350 days a year as a wrestler on the road. Maybe it's a sickness.
350 days a year.
A lot of physical pain, a lot of loneliness.
You have no home life whatsoever.
Piper and me riding down the road, doing 8 balls of cocaine. I'm sure it broke up marriages.
How many guys in the wrestling business have a family left when they're done? Most of them lose it.
I couldn't have children. I couldn't put on my turnbuckle while mommy worked.
I hit the bars, and that was my character. Sitting in a room with a bunch of wrestlers doing cocaine, we really got to know each other.
I would take a lot of downers, and I did have problems with the downers.
I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I was not a faithful husband from the first day, for the whole time on the road. I lived a double life. I needed it. It was like, I'm not getting the love I needed home.
Would I do? Oh my God, I'm afraid to say I would do it again.
I wouldn't change a thing.
No regrets.
Well, I want to tell you, to make some big money in wrestling, you had to wrestle every night of the week, $30 every day. So you had to wrestle 6 and 7 times every week just to earn your money.
350 days on the road with wrestlers, a living hell.
A lot of guys had a career in the 80s that fans aren't aware of the foundations of in the 70s. And one of those is Jimmy Valiant. And he was such a singles star in the 70s that a lot of people aren't aware of the tag team. And they were the #1 heel tag team in the old WWF, and they were part of the first card you saw live, right?
Yes, the Valiant Brothers was so ahead of their time. The way I describe them is it's like jazz musicians riffing off of each other, total improv. Johnny Valiant, they're both dear friends. Johnny's gone now, of course. Johnny said to me they would come down to the studio, WWF TV tapings, and basically they would say, August 1st, 1975, Philadelphia Spectrum, Valiants against Dean Ho and Tony Gurria, or Valiants against Victor Rivera and Dominic DeNucci, whatever the case may be. And they would improv, the Valiants and Lou Albano. And it would just get more and more frenzied as the promo progressed. And they were so ahead of their time between the colorful outfits and the long bleach blonde hair and the hipster patter, if you will. And Albano was a great talker also. And it was almost like they would take turns. Johnny would say something insane, then Jimmy would, then Albano would. And it would just culminate. And, Vince with the bumblebee yellow jacket at the time would shake his head in disbelief. He was like the straight man. It was magic. It was just magic, the Valiants. And I tell people all the time that at Madison Square Garden, when the Valiant Brothers walked down the aisle, or Bruno or Pedro Morales, whatever the case may be, the building would shake. No pyro, no entrance music, just guys walking down the aisle.
Right.
Charisma. Yeah.
People saw the managers of the WWF in the later parts of their career on video and the video era, and they don't really understand how hot these guys were. I was watching Boston Garden last night. I was watching a match, Bruno Sammartino and Spiros Arion. And Spiros Arion was preceded to the ring by Freddie Blassie. And Freddie Blassie had heat just as soon as he walked out of the dressing room. I mean, he had the crowd like mad. And he was just going and talking to the referee and making some hand gestures. What a heat magnet. I mean, it was amazing.
We call them the three wise men of the East, Blassie and the Grand Wizard and Albano. This is long before Bobby Heenan and these guys. I'm talking mid 70s to early 80s. the Wizard died in '83. Ernie Roth, who also managed the Sheik as Abdullah Farouk, and these guys were great talkers and heat magnets. And interestingly, the Wizard, nobody ever touched him. He never got hit. He never took a bump in the WWF anyway. And that was part of the fans' frustration because he never got his.
Right.
Albano was the polar opposite. Albano would headline arenas against Bruno and Pedro, and the fans would come. We never thought he had a chance of winning. They would come just to see him get beaten up and bleed. That's the kind of heat magnet Albano was. And
Right.
people don't understand this today. And they don't understand the mentality of a typical 70s crowd. I mean, most of us were marks. This was pre-internet, insider dirt sheets. I mean, sheets existed, but it was more clippings and results. It wasn't so much, gossip and rumors and insider stuff. So my father, for example, he was a World War II veteran, and he fought in Germany, and he was shot in Germany, and he saw friends die. And there's Waldo von Erich and Baron von Raschke and Hans Schroeder and all these guys playing Nazis. And, the fans wanted to murder them, literally murder them. And people don't understand, the other side of it is, as a kid, I was a kid at the time, a teenager, whatnot. When Bruno's getting kicked, punched, bloodied, you feel like the bullies are doing it to you. And when he makes that comeback, you feel vindicated.
Right.
And people don't understand it. Today, they're all smartened up, and they've watched 500 shoot interviews, and, it's a different mentality.
We weren't talking about booking. We were just wondering what the next feud was going to be, but it wasn't because we were trying to figure out the booking. We were just interested in the story, right? In the action, in the feud.
And we were trying to understand it all. I'm watching LATV in New York every week. Blassie's beloved. He's kissing babies. He has a big Mexican sombrero, and the fans are hugging him. And then he's at the Garden, and we wanted to kill the guy. And as a kid, I'm like, wait a second. And you're starting to get a little smartened up,
One fall, 4 rounds. Introducing on my left, from Bounty Hunter's Gulch, weighing in at 232, he is known the world over as the Hangman. And ladies and gentlemen, his opponent will be here in a big one on Friday night, when he promises it will be a scientific match when he meets Rocky Johnson. It'll be for the title, and Mr. Moto will referee. Here he is, 242, one and only Freddie Blassie. Here we go, and the Hangman attacks from the back. Blassie wore his America's Championship belt into the ring, and he goes to work. Wait a minute, this is the old Blassie. He sits out hard with him, the Hangman, in 1, 2. Are you kidding? He beat him. Bingo. This was supposed to be 4 rounds. Or 1 fall. Ladies and gentlemen, in only 22 seconds in round number 1, scoring with a southern neck breaker and a body press, and the winner is Freddie Blassie.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your impression. You talked about what the atmosphere was a little bit like. Is that the atmosphere that was going on when you were at the Garden that night when the Valiants came out?
Absolutely. Spiros Arion, you mentioned. He makes proud Italian Indian Chief Jay Strongbow eat his feathers on TV.
Right.
And one of the greatest heel turns of all time. And then, of course, he turns on Bruno also, and he's facing Bruno 3 straight months at the Garden. Every show is sold out, and the heat is off the charts. My father was a yellow taxi driver, an old school New York taxi driver. He said to me, every Greek taxi driver in New York is at this show, to see Arion,
Right.
and it was wild. And I tell people sometimes there was one particular match, Bruno's wrestling superstar Billy Graham. Graham beats Bruno for the belt in Baltimore. They didn't even dare do it at the Garden. They thought there'd be a riot. So Graham beats him in 77. And now they're having rematch after rematch at the Garden. And Monsoon is the guest ref. And mid-match, Billy Graham goes like this, I quit, walks back to the dressing room, and we think the match is over. Monsoon follows him. Next thing you know, Billy Graham is on Monsoon's shoulders. Monsoon dumps him back into the ring. Bruno pounces on him. It was like the Roman Colosseum.
Oh, wow.
The fans were in a frenzy. It was bloodlust. I mean, Bruno was like Saint Bruno in New York. And people also don't realize it was a very blue collar ethnic crowd. You had the Polish strongman Ivan Putski, and you had the Puerto Rican champions Pedro Morales and Victor Rivera, etc., so on. You had the Italian strongman Bruno, and they appealed to every possible ethnic group, and it was a very working class blue collar audience. And the tickets were $3 to $6 when I started. And one tragic night, the announcer gets on the mic and he says, "Fans, we want to let you know tickets are available for the next show, and the prices will be going up to $4 to $7." And this like agonizing, pain like rose through this blue collar crowd, and they booed because that $1 meant something to them. My father never broke 25 grand in his life, and WrestleMania this week is 300 to 10 grand a ticket. It's a different game today.
And that's not all people will go to at WrestleMania either. They'll go to all the other fan events that cost $50 and $60 and $80 and $90 to get into. So
they have Hulk Hogan, doing a signing, and you could zip a beer with him for $6,500, and you have Triple H and Lex Luger you can meet for $8,500, and you think it's a misprint when you first see it, and then you realize it's a different world.
And guys like you and guys like me that have been around these guys, not these particular people, but just people over the years that have been stars, they're just guys, they're just regular guys. And I can't see paying that to be with somebody, but I'm sure people will.
Back in the day, we would just stand outside Madison Square Garden, and this is interesting. As a kid, I'm standing out there. Andre the Giant and Dusty Rhodes would never sign for us kids. Never. They wouldn't so much as look at us. And then superstar Billy Graham, the Grand Wizard, Blassie, Albano, George Steele, they would all sign. They would all sign, and friendly, and it was like you smartened up real quick. The only thing is, Nikolai told me, we were dear friends. Nikolai said that him and the Sheik got so much heat, the Iron Sheik, that they would hide them in an ambulance and they would leave in the middle of the card because they didn't want to be, have all the fans see them, because that's the kind of heat they got, in the mid 80s. So, there was still some disconnect. What's real, what's not real, even in that era. McMahon actually publicly announced it was a work in the late 80s.
Right. Yeah. I used to hang out in the early 80s. I used to hang out in the back of the National Guard Armory in Kentucky and talk to Elizabeth Hewlett, who was running the gimmick stand for the Poffos.
Had you known, you would have got 50 autographs. It would have been worth a fortune.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? But she was just a girl. She was just a girl selling the gimmicks and waiting for Randy to get finished.
I was sitting ringside one day on an indie in New Jersey, and there's Sabu and Chris Candido and Tammy, and they were kids. They were just waiting for their preliminary match. Nobody knew them. Very down to earth, friendly, fresh faced, and the road did not do good for some of these guys, boy.
No, and speaking of growing up in Kentucky, when I was a kid in the early 70s, we had three sports heroes in Kentucky: Dan Issel, Secretariat the Horse, and Muhammad Ali. Those were our three Kentucky sports heroes. And you have something about Ali in the book.
Yeah, Ali would walk down the street in New York and sign autographs for anybody who asked. And I actually had a Madison Square Garden program with him and Andre on the cover, and they were measuring hand size, and Andre's hand was much bigger than Ali's, and Ali was a big, strong guy.
He was a big guy, yeah.
Yeah, so Ali is signing, but this was in the late 80s, and he couldn't talk. He already was ill, and a fan brushed lint off of his jacket because he wanted the champ, to look
pristine.
good. And it was very moving. It was very moving. And see, things like that just floated in my head for decades, and I put it in this book. And Ali would walk around in Harlem in the black community at the time and give out $20 bills. And
man.
I mean, and this was a long time ago, and that money meant something to people. He would just hand it out like a human ATM. And
yeah, you see him in documentaries, and it's captured in documentaries of him being on the street. And you just don't realize that was a common occurrence. You just think, oh, they just did that for the documentary.
Oh, no. He was a man of the people. He was in his prime the most famous man in the world, and I'll explain why. One, the technology had kicked in where you had everything on closed circuit when he was champ. So his fights went all around the world. Two, he was Muslim, so the Muslim world obviously embraced him.
Right.
And three, when he fought the Thriller in Manila and when he fought Foreman in Zaire, he fought all over the world. So, the third world countries embraced him, and he was the most famous man in the world. So, and he would sign anything you put in front of him. And when I hear celebrities today, do not approach me, I will only sell you an autograph, you think of, they're a pimple on the ass of a Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. Well, he never abandoned his principles.
Yeah. So
I mean, he knew what he believed in, and he knew what he stood for, and he never wavered from it. And it cost him the best years of his life from a fighting standpoint.
Oh yeah, Ali transcended boxing. He represented the turbulent 60s and the civil rights movement and everything else, the anti-war movement. I mean, and he was controversial at the time, that people either loved him or hated him. That was part of why the Ali Frazier series was so huge, because people embraced one. It was like Trump versus Biden. You're on one side or the other, and people, Ali, when he was sick and his hand was shaking at the Olympics, people came around more and embraced him. But when he was young, he was very outspoken and controversial, and not everybody got it. But he was one of my heroes.
I'm glad that people did finally get it. They did finally understand where he was coming from. He
sacrificed mightily. He was doing theater, whatever he could to pay the bills. They wouldn't let him fight for several years.
Right, best years of his life.
Prime years, yeah.
Speaking of guys that are different in their persona versus how they really are, tell me a George Animal Steel story.
This was interesting. As a kid, Steele would come in almost every summer because he was a high school teacher and coach, and he was off in the summer. So he'd come in to wrestle Bruno, Pedro, Backlund, etc. So every summer Steele would come in. You never thought he had a chance in hell of winning the belt, but he was so entertaining. He was hardcore before there was a name for it. He'd bleed, he'd be throwing garbage, he'd be running through the crowd, he'd be brawling outside the ring. And this wasn't always, WWF style, so he was like a wild man. So shoot ahead, and he's retired, semi-retired, and he's on Facebook, and we became Facebook friends. And he became very, very religious. And I'm Jewish. I'm married. My wife's Christian. She's from Korea. I have friends who are incredibly religious. I have friends who are atheists. It runs the gamut.
Right,
You
sure.
know, I make no judgments. But one day, George Steele said online, if you are not saved, you will burn in hell. And like this bothered me. And I'm like, George, what if you're like a good person and you really try to, live, a good
Morally
life and
well, yeah.
help people? And he's like, no, you're gonna burn in hell. So it got a little heated, me and George. The next thing I know, why is Evan being disrespectful to George? So, which I wasn't,
Yeah,
but
right.
that's another story.
George
And
was getting radical.
so the punchline to the story is, by sheer coincidence, as an agent, I was always working shows. Who was sitting next to me at one show? George the Animal Steele. And I don't think he put two and two together. I don't think hi, George, my name is Evan. I don't think we were friendly and he was warm. And when he left, I was, marking out. I loved that guy as a kid.
Yeah.
And the punchline to my story about George in the book, and I tell this whole story.
Yep.
I'm like, I hope George is in heaven like he mentions, and I hope he's happy in eternity because that man entertained us. And
I love that story.
thank you.
And let's shift over to music because there's a couple of music people in the book for sure, and some great stories. And a guy that I love R&B music. I love soul music, and I love the Reverend Al Green.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So tell me Al Green story.
Al Green is my all-time favorite live performer. The single greatest concert I ever saw was 1975, Al Green in New York. He whipped the women into such a frenzy that they stormed the stage past security. You couldn't see Al anymore. He was engulfed by these. The women went out of their minds because Al Green, for those, check out on YouTube. There's episodes of Soul, the old PBS show, and there's Al Green concerts from that era. He was unbelievable. He would end each show with Love and Happiness, which is his greatest song as has ever been written. And
Miles Davis had that effect too. He had that sexy woman fainting kind of stage
Miles
presence.
Davis was very GQ, and he had the suits, and people used to want to dress like Miles and look like Miles.
Talk like Miles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But Al Green was he was hot buttered soul, man.
Al Green would just like rip his shirt off. It was a different personalities, but Miles was also brilliant. Kind of Blue, people consider the greatest jazz album ever recorded.
I do.
Yeah. So one day we go down to the Mid-South Coliseum, and on that same vacation, we saw Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett against the Moondogs tear the place up. And on that same trip, I said to my friends, we got to go down to Al Green's church. We got to go down to Al Green's church.
Yeah.
And I go with these two buddies. We're all Jewish, and we're at Al Green's services, and he comes out. He must have seen the awe and wonder in my eyes because it's a packed church. He went right over to me and shook hands with me, the first one.
Wow.
And it was like the greatest 4.5 hours of music I've ever seen. And at one point, a homeless guy comes in off the street, and Al anoints him with the holy water and saves him. And people start running laps around the church. It was wild. And I walked out. I was drained. I mean, it was so incredible. I was emotionally and physically drained by it all. And if you ever want to actually see this, he still has services there. Today happens to be his 79th birthday, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And Also, there's a documentary, The Gospel According to Al Green. It's a great music documentary, and
I'll have to check that out because I love Al Green.
oh my God, me
I used to
too.
raise a lot of money for St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis. My the radio group and television group that I ran, we did telethons for them every year, and then they'd have a get together, and we'd bring the money to Memphis and present it to the hospital. And I've been to Al Green's church many times, and
Oh, so you know, I'm not
oh no,
exaggerating.
no, 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 no. It's a 3 and 4 hour just happiness day, you know. I mean, I've never seen people so happy.
If I lived in Memphis, I would probably be there every week and would probably convert. Yeah.
That's great. Tell me about Killer Kowalski.
Killer Kowalski was a soft-spoken, sensitive gentleman. And the irony is, his name is Killer, and one of the Mount Rushmore of heels. Those who actually know, Killer Kowalski would be on that Mount Rushmore. You might find this interesting. Whenever I interviewed wrestling legends, inevitably the names that would come up, greatest of all time as far as heels, Kowalski, Ray Stevens. Ray Stevens would go back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
But prime Ray Stevens that they hold in awe and reverence. Of course, Harley Race, Nick Bockwinkel, depending what part of the country you're from, because Nick Bockwinkel was more based out of the AWA. And Buddy Rogers. They always brought up Buddy Rogers and the original Sheik, of course. These are the greatest. But Kowalski's in that conversation if you really know your wrestling and you
Oh,
go back
absolutely.
far. Yeah. And we became friends, and he was so shy and soft-spoken in real life that unless you started the conversation, he would just kind of sit and look at you, but in the ring, he was relentless. We had a little venue called Sunnyside Gardens, which they turned into a fast food joint. It should have been like a cultural landmark, but they tore it down. And they had no air conditioning back in the day. And Kowalski is wrestling as one of the executioners with the mask, him and Chuck O'Connor, John Studd. And they're wrestling Strongbow and White Wolf, 2 out of 3 falls, 50 minutes. And he's got a mask on. The people in the audience are dying from the heat in the middle of the summer. He's just like relentless. The cardio this guy had. He was a vegetarian, and he was just he traveled around the world with a camera, and he took photos, and he did a book called Killer Pics, which is his photography all around the world.
Wow.
And I wrote the introduction for it. I was very honored. I mean, it wasn't any kind of bestseller or anything, but I was just flattered, that somehow I'm connected with somebody I have so much respect and love for. And he was a great performer. And I saw him at the end of his career. He left in 78, and I started attending June of 74. So I saw him towards the very end, and he was still great.
But in 74 and 75, he was still selling out, doing programs with Bruno. I mean,
Kowalski and Waldo von Erich and George Steele wrestled Bruno hundreds and hundreds of times over decades, the 60s and the 70s. And they always drew because they were Waldo von Erich. This guy should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. He was tremendous.
Yeah, he was a heel and a great performer.
Great.
Let's go back to music. John Lennon.
Yeah, this is some story. True story. December 8, 1980. December 8, 1980.
I know exactly where I was that day.
Yeah, everybody does, from that era. So I'm at Madison Square Garden, and Bruno's wrestling on top Sergeant Slaughter. Slaughter was on fire. He was great heel. So Backlund was in Japan. Rare garden card that Backlund missed. So show ends. I walk into the street. It's around 11 o'clock. The garden shows usually ended around 11. They had 11 o'clock union curfew. If you stayed later, it cost them a lot more money. So they were usually over around that time. And I walk out, and there's this weird, bad vibe in the air. Bad vibe. And I I walk up to an absolute stranger, which you don't usually do in New York because you're scared somebody will kill you.
Yeah.
So I walk up to this guy. He's in a suit. He looks like a Wall Street boy or a banker or whatnot. I don't know. And I said, quote, "What happened?" I could tell something bad had happened. He goes, "John Lennon was just shot." So again, we're on 34th Street and John Lennon was shot on 72nd Street. This is not that far away.
Right.
And of course, again, there's no internet, there's no cell phone, so we really didn't know how bad this was. And by the time I got home and turned on the news, John Lennon was dead. And the first thought that went through my head was how ashamed I felt that it happened in New York, where I've lived my whole life. Because you remember he used to have the New York T-shirt and he really embraced New York.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I was like, man, 40 years old, musical genius, politically.
I loved the Beatles at that time. I mean, I just really did. And I found out by watching Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
It came on Monday night. They broke into Monday Night Football and announced it. And
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I actually went to the memorial service in Central Park that Yoko, organized, and it was to this day. I'm a New Yorker. To this day, people will be standing outside of his building and or the little memorial that's still in Central Park, which is right across the street, and tourists will come and you know pay tribute to him because. I mean, I don't have to sell you on John Lennon, musical
Oh no.
genius.
Oh my gosh. I always felt so much sadness for Yoko. They had been through so much together, and they obviously loved each other. And just for him to just be, I mean, he was taken from all of us, but he was taken from her specifically. I mean, it's
Oh
just
yeah.
too bad.
And she, she gets this. People have this simple view of life. Good, it's almost like pro wrestling, good and evil. Like Yoko broke up the Beatles. It was more complicated than that.
Yeah. No, they were ready to go their own way. All bands get to that point. They were just so much bigger, and their lives were so magnified, and their every move was, was looked at and analyzed. And I think they were ready to break up and do their own thing. But I think they managed to keep their relationships together.
In the 10 or 12 years they were together, I don't know exactly. Musically, the progress was so astounding.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they never did the same song twice. I mean, a lot of bands do 3 albums and the songs start to sound similar, but none of theirs ever did. Every piece of music was different.
And for young men at the time, they were very wise, profound. Like she's leaving home. This is, a lot of young people wouldn't be thinking along lines like that.
Right.
Some beautiful music, and yeah.
Well, we talked about wrestling. We talked about music. You've also been involved in movies, and at least 2 wrestling movies that I know of. You were involved in The Wrestler. How'd that come about?
I was an agent, and I had booked Johnny Valiant and Nikolai Volkov for a signing at a store called the Wrestling Universe in Queens. And the executive producer of The Wrestler's best friend, and people get confused with these titles, the executive producer is the money guy. He raises the money, gets the film off the ground. His best friend walks in. And he starts talking to us. And Johnny was a stand-up comedian, very funny and entertaining. And Nikolai was the nicest, warmest, kindest person you'd ever want to meet. And, we clicked. And he said to me, "Do you know Darren Aronofsky?" And I said, "Yes, I love movies." I said, "I've seen Requiem for a Dream and Pi, P-I,
Right,
3.14 about a math genius." And he said, "Darren's doing a wrestling project and quote, you guys would be perfect for it. So I give him my business card. I don't hear anything for a good 6 months, and I almost forget about it. And suddenly I get a call one day. We'd like to meet with you guys. Bring whoever you feel would be appropriate. We want to discuss this project. So I brought Johnny Valiant, Nikolai Volkov, Nikita Brezhnikov, who was Nikolai's shoot manager, legit manager for bookings. I brought Tiger Khan, who wrestled for the Hearts up in Calgary, and myself. And Nikolai's regaling them with road stories, and Johnny's just has them laughing because he was tremendously funny, Johnny. And hours were going by, and we're just laughing and drinking beers. It felt like old friends. It didn't feel like a business meeting by the end of it. And I walked out of there. I said it couldn't go any better than that. So then, like another 6 or 7 months go by, I don't hear anything because, he's working on his other projects.
Sure.
And I get a call, and Scott Franklin, the executive producer, says to me, Evan, we'd like you to be the associate producer, AKA the wrestling guy. So I brought in Mickey's stunt double, The Ring, Mickey's trainer, Alpha trained Mickey. I did 5 or 6 casting calls. I brought in Ron Killings, Necro Butcher, Romeo Roselli, etc. And basically, the script was ongoing for many, many years. This from the day I met them to the day it was finished was 7 years.
Wow.
7 years. People don't realize what goes into a quality film. So the first script, and the script was brilliant. The first script, they had me checking for the wrestling content. Did it ring true? And in the original script, Randy the Ram is blading himself and everybody's watching. All the wrestlers are watching. I said, nobody would be watching. Nobody would care. It's just another day at the office. I said, this is absolutely, not what would happen.
Right.
And he took it out. He took it out of the script. So about 6 months before we shot The Wrestler, I was taking Aronofsky and the guys on the road every weekend to wrestling events. And I took them to this convention in New Jersey, and it was the equivalent of the WWE Hall of Fame. You had the Samoans, Johnny Valiant, Snuka, Moolah, Mae Young, Albano, etc., so on. And we're at this convention, and there's like nobody there. There were more wrestlers and vendors than fans.
Oh, wow.
And Aronofsky and Scott Franklin and Rob Siegel, the screenwriter, they didn't understand it. And Aronofsky, who's a nice guy, his mom's a school teacher. He's not a rich kid. He's a talented guy who made it on drive and talent. No connections.
Sure.
He's like, Evan, where is everybody? He kept repeating it. Where is he? Felt bad. Next thing I know, that was written into the script.
Wow.
And when we shot it, I was on set because anything wrestling related, I was there. And I'm looking at the tables and everything was very neat and tidy. I said it wouldn't look like this. It would be like a flea market. Every inch of the table would be full of stuff, and it would not be this organized. And
right.
So I'm standing. So I do a little set design. So I'm standing there, and Aronofsky suddenly gets this smirk. He goes, Evan, come here for a second. I go, yeah. He goes, walk up to Mickey last, ask him for an autograph and a Polaroid. And Mickey walks over to me and he whispers in my ear, he goes, just improv it. I've never acted in my life. I'm in my street clothes, no makeup, I'm like stunned. I'm about to act in a movie. I never even acted in high school, nothing.
Right.
So if you remember that scene,
I do.
The only actual wrestlers, that was Johnny Valiant. His head was down on the table because at that convention, the Sheik was asleep on the table, the Iron Sheik. So that's Johnny Valiant. And the other only legit wrestler there was Manny Yarborough, who was a black sumo. he wrestled, he fought for UFC early on, and he was a sumo in Japan. So those are, and Manny was a friend of mine, 800-pound sumo. So, I'm walking around and I'm thinking the whole time, what am I going to say to Mickey when I get up to him? Because we're improving it. So I'm thinking, what would I say to a wrestling hero? And I finally get up to him and I go, I loved you as a kid. I saw you at Madison Square Garden. Can I have your autograph? And he looks at me and he goes, what's your name? So now I'm thinking again. And just instinctively, I go, Evan. And it dawns on me how utterly surreal this is. I'm playing myself
Playing yourself in a movie. Yeah.
in a fictional movie, So the whole thing was magic.
That's
And
awesome, man. I love that scene.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah, and it just felt sad,
It was sad, and I've been to events like that are sad, and even as Johnny Valiant's quote unquote shoot manager, he would do his one-man comedy show, and one night it's packed and one night it's empty. One night it's half full. Show business and wrestling are tough. It's tough. Yeah.
That's the way it goes. And then you were involved in another movie too about wrestlers traveling, right?
350 days.
Yeah, I love that. I love that one too.
Thank you. Thank you. 350 days. That took 6 years to make.
Wow.
People don't realize. And we build Billy Graham, superstar Billy Graham, and Bret Hart as the stars, but really there's 36 legends in there. I mean, everybody and anybody. King Kong Mosca, George the Animal Steele, Paul Orndorff, Tito, Ted DiBiase. I mean, there's 36 legends in there. At this point, about half of them are gone.
Right.
Right. Is gone. Larry Sharp is gone. And the title, 350 Days, comes from the fact you got that post of Harley Race over there. It comes from the fact that the NWA champs would literally wrestle 350 days a year. They'd be on the road. And the toll it takes on your body, your family, your marriage, your psyche. I mean, this was not an easy grind. And when we were filming, Bret Hart as WWF champ told us he wrestled 330 days.
Wow.
And Greg Valentine as the Intercontinental champ wrestled 320 days a year. So these aren't like inflated numbers. This is the real, and wrestlers hate the word fake because they'll go, my 3 divorces weren't fake. My hip replacement wasn't fake. My kid not talking to me because he never saw me isn't fake. And that's really the theme of the movie. And our editor, Michael Burlingame, he worked with Paul McCartney, speaking of the Beatles. He worked with Mariah Carey. He worked with Sting, not Sting from WCW, Sting from the Police.
Sting from the Police. Yeah.
And I said to Darren Antola, the executive producer, I said, this guy's the right guy. He doesn't know main event from undercard guy. He's going to pick the best, most heartfelt tales. And I said to Mike, I said, make a movie, edit a movie that would make an 80-year-old woman who never watched wrestling cry. I said, we don't need another movie with the 200 action figures or the journalist is in the gym and the wrestler's putting them in an arm bar. That's been done 1,000 times.
Right.
I said, let these guys pour their hearts out.
I loved it. I loved it. Great.
That's what we did. I did another movie, Wrestling Then and Now, even earlier. It's a documentary. Kowalski's the star. Don Arnold.
Check that out.
Yeah, Don Arnold, who goes back to the 50s, and Homicide's in it, and Nikolai's in it. Yeah. I mean, we shot it on pennies. If we spent $1,000 on that, it was a lot, but it's from the heart,
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. Well, as you can tell, folks, Evan's got a lot of stories, and a bunch of them are in this book. It's called Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. Evan Ginzburg, thank you so much for documenting this. This is as you can tell, I'm a reader, but I've got a lot of wrestling books. This is in my precious few just because of the great stories that you have documented here. Thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you so much for the support, and I really do appreciate it. And it's nice that a person who appreciates books, because it's not just wrestling. In
Right.
that book, it's also about the film business and teaching, because I waited 7 years to get paid for the wrestler. I waited 6 years to get paid for 350 days. I always kept teaching, so there's tales from the classroom also. There's more to life than just wrestling, folks.
Yeah, and Evan's got a lot of stories from his life in here. And like I said, it's like a documented photo scrapbook of various times in his life, and it's extremely interesting, and you should get the book. Evan, thank you so much. I enjoyed spending time with you.
Anytime. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Evan Ginzburg, everybody. This is the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Videocast. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Podcast. Tune in for another great episode next week. Interviewing wrestlers, referees, and media personalities that have made the sport of professional wrestling great. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel. We'll release a new episode soon. Don't you dare miss it.